And it looks like we are on. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Carp's Corner Conversations. I'm going to go ahead and get my privacy set up so we can get everybody on here to watch this conversation with my good friend, David Marine. I'm Sean Carpenter in Columbus, Ohio, and you are watching Carp's Corner Conversations. These are just events that I've started doing since the lockdown, where I jump on, interview some friends of mine, some mentors, some people that I want to learn from that I think you might learn from as well. My good friend, David Marine, Chief Marketing Officer from Coldwell Banker, is joining us today. What's up, David?
How you been, Sean? You doing all right?
Doing good, man. Happy New Year. Can you believe we are in 2021?
Yes, it's about time, right? Are your kids off to college? Are they still doing virtual at home?
So Ryan will head back to school in just a bit. He's going back to Mississippi State for his second part of his freshman year. And Riley, who did her University of South Carolina senior year at home virtually, she's going to go back for her final senior semester where she will be a student teacher, David. She'll be strictly out in the field teaching a fourth grade class. Miss Carpenter will be running the classroom. She doesn't even have a single class on campus. So,
wow, that is big. Good for her. What a year to go into teaching.
I know, right? Well, she got a chance to learn how to teach via Zoom last semester and had a fifth grade class. And this year will be a little different with kind of partial. But Ryan had a different freshman year. But like we'll talk about our freshman years. You know, it's we can say it was different than what we had, but it was not different for because he doesn't know what freshman year was like. So he got a chance to go to one football game. He misses being on campus. I think he really enjoyed the atmosphere. So we officially are a 4 SEC family, David, with Florida, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Mississippi State. So
good for you.
Yeah. So welcome, buddy. Here it is, January 4th. We got lots to talk about. Let's jump right into it, man. Why don't you tell people a little bit about, let's start where you are now, what your role is, and then we'll go back to the beginning.
Sure. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Coldwell Banker. I've been with the brand for 19 years. I am in Rockaway, New Jersey. I've actually been in this house for 16 years now. My oldest was 1 when we moved in, and he's turning 17 the end of this year. And I've been working from home since March, and this is my office, also known as my living room. And my wife was kind enough to give me a small corner of the room over here where I'm allowed to have a desk and a computer, and from time to time be able to use this lovely backdrop for podcasts and videos.
That's awesome, Dave. We were talking, we've known each other for, almost 15, maybe 20 years now, because we were thinking back, we were going back in our timeframes on events and things like that. And I've been over to corporate headquarters. You've been out to our Ohio companies before. Let's go back, Dave. Where did you tell us where little David Marine was born? Let's do the origin story.
I was born in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, which is Army base. My father was in the military at the time. It's where all the intelligence officers go to train. So it's it's like 2 hours south of Tucson. So it's super South Arizona. Born there, lived there as a baby, moved back to New Jersey after my dad got out of the service. And he was quickly transferred to Ohio, working for AT&T. So I lived in a suburb of Columbus called Dublin, Ohio. It's the home of Wendy's, and everybody in the area knows that, for a number of years as a kid. And then we moved back to New Jersey when I was around 8 or 9. And so I've lived here for the rest of my life. But being born in Arizona is why I became an Arizona Wildcats basketball fan, got into that with Lou Dolson as the coach, and then living in Ohio for as many years. Obviously, and going to an Ohio State Buckeyes game, that just makes you a fan from day one. So so that explains kind of your Arizona love. So Lute Olson, man, those were some great teams. Miles Simon, and so who's your favorite Wildcat? If you go back, is it like, it goes between Damon Stoudemire was like one of the first in the 94. They made the Final Four. I think they lost to Arkansas that year. But I got super into them with Richard Jefferson when he was on the team, and just like explosiveness. Great Jason Gardner was on that team. Gilbert Arenas.
Sean Elliott.
Sean
Elliott was on that team.
Sean Elliott was a little bit before that.
He might have been on the team that lost to Arkansas. Yeah, they were solid.
Yes, but they were always running gun, shooting threes, scoring over 100 points. Like, that's what really got me into it, and so been a fan of them and been staying up late for Pac-12 basketball games ever since.
Right, exactly. So, so you grew up in New Jersey. Tell us, what's one of the maybe myths of New Jersey, and what's one of the kind of hidden secrets of living in New Jersey?
So the myth is that people here are rude and nasty, which they are at times, but they're also some of the most loving people. My wife, who's originally from Southern Illinois, when we got married and she moved out here, she was amazed at the amount of generosity that people have here. And while they may be like cold in the grocery store, and when you're wanting to like move in front of them or pass them or something, when it comes down to it, they're willing to help out and give you aid and show real love whenever you want. The other one is, I remember she told her parents that she was dating an Italian boy from New Jersey, and it was like, whoa, what is going on? Italian boy, this is, what's his family do? Are they in construction?
Sopranos, yeah.
They're in waste management. And then it's like everybody's picture of New Jersey is Newark and the airport, which is very small. Like I live in an area where I have deer in my backyard, turkeys. My kids go to school where there are farms. They don't work on the farms, but it's basically just really why it's called the Garden State. It's because it's very fertile soil here. So that's one of the misnomers is there's lots of trees, wildlife, and greenery in New Jersey. But if you only fly into Newark, you'll never see it.
Yeah, I've been out to your state many, many times. In fact, recently, I've spoken at Triple Play, a big real estate conference that is called Triple Play because it's the realtors of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, all in Atlantic City. An amazing week of conferences. And I fly in and I spend a day or two with George Krause and Sharon Steele, two of our friends with Coldwell Banker.
In Westfield,
And then we drive down, and it's kind of a really pretty drive. Once you get about 25, 30 minutes south of Westfield, you pass a lot of places where there's literally just trees, and there's a big amphitheater south of where Sharon lives, where they
PNC Bank Arts Center. That's where they have concerts in the summer.
Yeah, and then obviously you pass all the beach exits and things like that on your way down. It's really kind of a neat area.
And the Jersey Shore. I mean, everybody looks at Jersey Shore from like the MTV show, and they're like, oh, it's all just crazy people. Everybody on Jersey Shore is actually from New York. And yes, there is some fist pumping, and if you go to certain beaches, it'll be like that. But my parents have a place in Wildwood Crest, which is all the way at the very tip of New Jersey, next to Cape May. Gorgeous beach, free beach you can go on. You got to pay for parking, but the beaches are free down there, and it's really a unique place to go. So if you've never been to the Jersey Shore, you should make that a go-to place.
So Amy Patternite says people from Jersey are awesome. So.
That's right, Amy. Amy is clearly one of the smartest viewers you have on your show. So great.
So David, in high school, I mean, you have 4 boys, which we'll get to in a minute. Did you have brothers and sisters? Were you the baby? Were you the middle? Were you the oldest?
I'm the only child.
Okay.
Raised an only child, and people will be like, that explains a lot. But yes, so the only one. I went to Parsippany Christian School from 3rd grade all the way through 12th grade. So it's a private school that had elementary, junior high, and high school. But and I've been commuting on Jersey roads since I was in 3rd grade. So when it came time to like go to work, and you're like, oh, I got to commute. I was used to that, driving 45 minutes to school every day for most of my life.
So were you a good student?
I was high honor roll student. A's and B's pretty much in most classes. I was salutatorian of my graduating class, whatever that's worth, because there's one really super smart girl who was valedictorian. But I would compete in different competitions. Math I used to be really good at, and now as I'm learning 7th grade math and 3rd grade math and how it is now, I realize I did not retain many of those things.
Right. Did you play sports in high school?
I did. I played soccer and basketball. The only reason why I played soccer was because the basketball coach coached the soccer team and said that the basketball players had to join the soccer team. But it's a sport that I eventually came to enjoy and love at first. Like, this is a lot of running. Like, this doesn't seem really great. But in Little League, even before like high school, Little League baseball was really my thing through 8th grade. And then for some reason, 8th grade, I fell in love with basketball, and that like really became the thing that I wanted to play the most.
Nice. And I saw you just coached your son's soccer team. First opportunity because of COVID, really your first time without traveling a lot, that you were able to kind of be a dad.
Yeah. It was one of those things where when we started having kids, I was like, you know what? I don't think I can coach my kids because I just felt like it would be an issue. But then as they started playing through different sports, it's like, well, maybe one of these days I will. But travel was always a hurdle. I couldn't be relied on to be there for practicing games. So this year with in the spring, with no travel happening, I was like, well, let me try this and see how it's worked. So many rules for coaching this year versus any other ordinary year. So I feel like I've had the most extreme coaching scenario with all the different protocols. I had to like spray down soccer balls after every practice and game and social. Try to get 10-year-olds to social distance on the bench is like, it's an amazing achievement if you can have it. But it was really fun. I enjoyed it. And I found that bribery or the illusion of a future prize will get kids to perform at a higher level. So this is for anybody who's coaching, little tip. First day of practice, I said, every practice, there will be a player of practice. And whoever is named the player of practice will get a prize at the end of practice. And so they're like, yeah, whatever. And so I started giving out soccer cards, and, someone won the first week, and then another person won the second week. And then all of a sudden, kids were coming like, I'm going to get player of practice today, and here's why. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's actually working. They're actually wanting to do better because they think that there's this like very small accolade, like $1 pack of cards can motivate people. But we're in real estate. And so we know that, motivating people with, hey, there's this award at the end of the rainbow here is something that does get people to perform at a higher level than they ordinarily would.
That's awesome. Good for you. So David, you finished high school, salutatorian. You head off to college, and tell us where you picked in Greenville, North Carolina. Or Greenville, South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah, Bob Jones University, Greenville, South Carolina. It's a small Christian university. I had been there throughout high school. There used to be academic competitions, sports competitions that they would host there. And several people from my church had gone there before, so I had explored it a bit, went down there 4 years in South Carolina. Jersey boy heading south, was a bit of a transition. Loved the fact that it was like warm all the way like through Thanksgiving down there and early, but there was like a different pace than what I'm used to here. Even different style when you're like playing sports. You don't realize, because when you're so regional and you're like, oh, I play Northeast teams and it's this kind of style. Yeah. Then you go down there and like, oh wow, this is really different. They don't do it this way. They do it somewhere else. But it was fantastic 4 years. Made tons of friends. We even was texting with some of them last night after that, during that awful Eagles and Washington football team game. So still in contact with them. And it's obviously the place where I met my wife. So 4 years of tuition was well worth it for the long-term benefits of being married to Tara.
Dave, what was your major? Was it marketing, or was it something? Did you have a dream of doing something else when you went there?
Actually, no. I was one of those rare people that majored in marketing and stuck with it the whole time. And even as a kid, when I was growing up, I used to tell my parents I wanted to make television commercials. Like that was what I wanted to do. And they were like, you need to set your goals a little bit higher. How about you do something like more beneficial? But that's what I wanted to do. The one thing that I discovered in college was this idea of studying speech and communication and how important that was. And I saw like, hey, you know what? This might help me down the road in business. If I can learn how to memorize lines and communicate Shakespeare, doing a PowerPoint presentation will be easy. So I decided to minor in what's called interpretative speech, like kind of like acting. And I did that for 4 years there. And I think that actually is one of the most beneficial decisions in college that I made, because what I learned in those classes have been super useful throughout my career and life, even more so than the marketing classes, because marketing changed so much since 1996 when I first entered college, right? There was no social media, mobile, video wasn't as big as it is, but those speech classes and what you learn on how to prepare and prep and all that stuff has really helped. And that's timeless.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and you met Tara there.
Yes.
How did that work out? Just a girl in a speech class, or a quad? Was it?
A little bit. So a little bit of that. So Tara, I tell people, she was one of the more popular girls on campus when I was an undergrad. Like they knew her. She was part of student council. She ran in like groups that you would just like see running stuff. So she was a known entity. I was just this lowly kid who would be in the gym from like 7 to 10 p.m. every weekday playing basketball. And so when I came for my senior year, it was also known that Tara was dating someone. Like there was a popular couple. And so all of a sudden she came back for grad school, saw her on campus, guys out of the picture. And it was also like, there's now an opening here. And so as fate would have it, we were both cast to be in a play called The Swan by Frederick Molnar, Russian play of some sort. She was the leading lady, and I played her wisecracking uncle. And so over that period of time, I got to know her. And when you're working in performing in a play together, you kind of have side conversations, you get to know people. And so in the back of my head, I was like, you know what, when this is over, I'm going to try and ask her out, but I'm not going to ask her out like in the middle of this thing, because then it'll be weird if she says no. So it happened. So the play went through, it was good. And then I asked her out afterwards, and we went on a date. And I remember my roommates and my friends at the time, they're like, "You're going out with Tara Rodman?" I said, "Yeah, we're going out to dinner, blah, blah, blah." They're like, "You'll be back here in 15 minutes. She doesn't know who you are. She has no idea." Like, yeah, she's going to be like, "All right, enough of you. I'm going to leave you at the curb and then go on my way."
Your friends sound very supportive.
Yeah, they were. I invited them to my wedding just for that fact alone. But lo and behold, we went out. We had a good time. We went and watched actually a soccer game on campus afterwards, which was unexpected. I thought we were going to go and she was going to do something else afterwards. And then we just started a relationship, and I graduated that spring. She stayed. She finished her master's degree in rhetoric and public address a year later, and then we got married in December of 2001.
This revelation makes sense now. Why we watch the David Marine family movies now, and she's an integral star in these movies.
That's right. Yeah, she's often the vocal performer because she can sing really well, and she also keeps us all under wraps in directing the videos.
So first job out of college, where was it?
Lenskold Marketing Group, which was a small boutique ad agency in Morristown, New Jersey. And at the time when I was interviewing, my parents were like, "You should go for these big companies, Prudential, ADP, AT&T, and get a job there, and then you can grow." But I really found this small agency, and they were doing cool stuff. They were working with a lot of high-tech companies at the time. Always loved technology. They had one of the first like VPN providers as a client. There was a .com, like a financial.com site that they were handling. So I was like, I could get in at the ground floor, be really involved in stuff. And it's an area that I enjoy. So I worked with them. One of the best scenarios is graduated in May, got a job, but they're like, "Hey, we only need you part-time until September, and then we'll bring you on full-time." So graduate, I got like basically a 25, 30 hour a week job for the summer, like right out of school. I was like, "Oh, this is great. I can go down the shore, all that. I'll only work Tuesday through Thursday, and then I'll take Monday and Friday off." And then I got hired on full-time with them, and I worked with them for about 2 years before I came to Coldwell.
What is the early pathway for that marketing person? I mean, you went in early picturing main commercials and things like that, which you've done now in your role. Mm-hmm. But what were you doing on a day-to-day basis there?
There was a lot of, so the principal of the agency was in the midst of writing a book on marketing ROI. And so he viewed me as like, "Hey, you're my research assistant on this." So I did a ton of research on what are other brands doing, case studies, how's the most effective way to measure ROI. But then at the time, so this is 2000, and at the time it was just when .com was starting to boom. And so I started researching everything from email marketing to privacy policies, best practices there, and learning about how this new digital space, which was just coming to fruition, would really work. And then what are some of the best avenues where we could do it? So I got to create the first email marketing campaign that the agency did for one of our clients, and really get in on the ground level of a lot of this digital stuff, which then started to really escalate through the rest of my career of like, getting in and understanding this digital world, the online landscape was critical.
That's awesome. So you leave there. Did Coldwell Banker headhunt you? Did you find another job? What kind of jumped you over to the big blue nation?
Yeah, it would not have been a path I would have chosen. So as the story goes, September of 2001, I bought a first home, 1,200 square foot townhouse. December of 2001, got married. February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2002, so just 2 months later, I walked into the office and found out I was getting laid off. So after 9/11, .com bust, all these tech companies were shutting down all their advertising and marketing dollars. And so this agency that was focused solely on that segment was just like getting hit hard. So being one of the lower people on the poll, I was the first one out the door. So new home, new wife, no job. And I tell people that on my way home that day, I called my dad to tell him what happened. And he says to me, pack your bags, you and Tara are going to Disney World. I was like, what are you talking about? I got to do a resume. I got to do all these plans. I got to figure out how I'm going to pay bills. And he said, Dave, you will never have another week in your life where you have zero responsibilities. We'll go to Disney World. Mom and I will take care of it and just take the week. And we did. First time Tara had ever been. Came back, searched online for jobs for 2 months straight and went on interviews, but got no offers. And then I came across a job on hotjobs.com to be the electronic product manager for Coldwell Banker, who I thought was a bank at the time as a 23-year-old naive person. And got that one in, went through like what felt like 6 interviews and got the position. And 19 years later, I'm still with the brand today. And
you've kind of, what was it? What?
Electronic product manager.
Okay. So you were there when we had the Microsoft desk like rollout.
Yeah, I was involved in that. Yes, the Surface table.
Yeah, and that was, and then the YouTube channel. I mean, you've really, I talk to people all around the country. For the oldest company in real estate, we are by far one of the most innovative companies and always have been. We've always been doing some cool things. And so now you are the Chief Marketing Officer. Very, very cool. You came in under the great Jim Gillespie was president, right? And,
Alex Perillo actually was president for like a year or two when I joined.
That's right.
And then Jim Gillespie and Budge Husky and Charlie Young. So yes, I've been through a lot of personnel changes, and you're so right about our innovation. Like at the time, I've been able. Sometimes your career, there's a lot of things that just happen. You're like you're not because you planned it, but it just happens because you're in the right place at the right time. So I was able to be involved in the first mobile application in real estate with Coldwell Banker, first iPad application, first Facebook page, YouTube channel. We entered a virtual world called Second Life and built an actual home that was for sale there, the Surface table, which now when you hear about Microsoft Surface, it's like, oh, it's those little things, the tablets the NFL uses. Yeah, it was this massive table.
It was like where you played like Pac-Man or Galaxy. Yeah,
exactly like that we were using, like, you could find houses, and then we had like air hockey on it too, I think. But yeah, a lot of great opportunities and change along the way.
That's awesome. So Dave, let's talk about kind of the evolution of the time since you've been at Coldwell Banker. The one for a lot of people that are watching this, Heather and Sharon and Mike Magnuson from here in Columbus he's a new agent with us, hadn't been there, but Marty and some of the people that have been on with us.
Yeah.
Jamie Engel down in Keys. So IBC was the International Business Conference, and it brought all the Coldwell Bankers from around the globe together. And then it kind of, did it go away kind of when the Nashville floods happened and then it came back as Gen Blue, or was Gen Blue?
Yeah. So the International Business Conference stopped around the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, when it was like, hey, this just doesn't make sense for us to host these. So we took a break for a year. And then it really was with Mike Fisher at the time, and Budge Husky was the COO and Jim the CEO. And went into them as like, hey, is there the opportunity to like completely change what we're doing? Because International Business Conference just sounds like a really boring thing. It just sounds like a snooze fest. And it used to be 3 hours of, a general session with, 45-minute speakers each. And so we went in with the idea of like, hey, can we make this like fast-paced, upbeat, socially driven, mobile integration? Let's just turn the real estate event up on its head and try and make the most out of it. Let's get people who you would never see at a real estate event to come and be part of ours. And that really sparked it. And folks like yourself and Sharon Steele and Heather Ostrom and others through the years, we've wanted to get those people involved who are connected within the industry with our network and can help bring this energy to the event versus like, let's just get a bunch of massive people in this large room and like talk at them for 45 minutes. How can we make it interactive? How can we make it engaging? And so I've been really excited. That's one of the things of being involved with the transformation of Gen Blue that I really enjoy as part of my career.
I believe it would have been Las Vegas. The Mirage was the first year we did it. And I remember one of the big things, it was like, there's no ties. It's, you know, and I remember Matt Case and I did a fun video of, we caught you wearing a tie at the trade show. And we walked up and cut it off. And
well, I think, no, it was, wasn't it? Matt was wearing a tie, and you set up a sting. You're like, oh, he's going to wear a tie, and you go up to him and tell him, like, you got to take that tie off. And it was a Mets tie that you made me cut.
Yes, exactly. That was funny because David's a big Mets fan, and either begrudgingly or ashamedly, he's a Mets fan.
That's right. That's right. A little bit of both.
Can't hide from it. So the Gen Blue evolution change. We've had, man. I mean, think of some of the places, Vegas, and then the next year was New York City, which was a difficult thing. I think a lot of people, David, I've been there a lot of times for Inman Connect and but it's not a good city. Or let me say it, it's not an easy city to have an event in. Whereas Vegas, you're at one location, you're all on one site. You can have the staff there, you can have the guests there, you can have the parties there. New York City was a coordination, logistical. I don't want to say nightmare. I'm sure it was just a nightmare.
It's fair to call it a nightmare because one of the things with Gen Blue is we want to like embrace the place that we're at, and we wanted to get away from massive ballrooms and really like, let's go to iconic places in towns where you can really experience the city. So that was the whole thing with New York was, all right, we did Vegas, we did New Orleans Convention Center. What's an iconic place in New York City? Let's go to Lincoln Center and let's have an event there. And let's have a party at the Museum of Natural History. And you know what, New York, try and fit, 3,000 people in one hotel in New York. You can't really do it. You're going to be spread out here, there, and everywhere. But you know what? We want you to experience the city. Take the subway. Get lost. Ask someone for directions.
Yeah, go to Times Square.
Dirty water dog.
It was I was lucky enough. You had invited me and our buddy Mike Randall and Kara Amir. Mike Randall from Coldwell Banker Pinnacle Properties, Kara Amir from Coldwell Banker Vanguard. We were on stage with you at Lincoln Center for a short little interview on the evolution of technology and how it's evolving. I remember we were backstage and the Roots were playing, Jimmy Fallon's band. Right. That was awesome. And then look, the party at the Natural History Museum was legendary. I tell people that all the time. I think we had this whole place to ourselves. We had, the great DJ Mary Mack, who was
DJ Mary Mack, that's right.
Madonna's private DJ, was just a blast. Then the next year, in Los Angeles, at the studio,
Universal Studios.
Studios. DJ Mary Mack's back. Then we go back to Chicago. We were at where were we at in
Chicago Theater?
LA. LA. We were in the Dolby.
Dolby. Yep, where they have the Oscars.
Yeah, which is really.
We were at a place where they had the Oscars. Like, come on, it's not just an ordinary like Hilton ballroom. We're at an iconic place. I mean, that stage was incredible. But Lincoln Center, awesome. Chicago Theater was legendary too. I really had no idea how awesome that place was until we were there. But yeah, and so we keep trying to raise the bar every year. So hopefully this year we will be at Radio City Music Hall back in New York, and hopefully bringing New York back a bit after all this craziness.
Yeah, we're getting lots of love in the comments about some of the people's favorite parties. I know Nashville was on the radar one year, and then it just the floods, and then obviously the world changed a little bit after that. So David, let's talk about really quickly before we talk about the branding and marketing part of what you get to do every day. So the old office in Madison, the old Realogy headquarters, and now the new LEED green palatial estate in Madison. What do you miss about the old place? What do you love about the new place?
So the old place in Parsippany, I think you're referring to, that place was massive. I do miss that commute because it was ridiculously good for me. It was like a 15-minute commute. And Madison is really on a map, I think maybe 4 or 5 miles further. But with Jersey traffic, it actually added another 30 minutes for me every morning and evening. So that is what I miss as a commute. Although the new Madison building it's fantastic. It's really gorgeous, beautiful space. It is tough from a traffic perspective because it's like a 1-lane road in front, then it goes to 2, then it goes back to 1. It's a traffic nightmare, but really is a great space to work in. And everybody who enters it, like that's one of the first things that they say, like, man, this place is incredible. I didn't know this was even here.
Yeah, Dave, let me ask you a question. In the old building, you kind of had like Coldwell Banker in one corner, then you had like,
Mhm.
ERA was in one side. It was very compartmentalized. Is it the same in the new office, or is it still kind of brand by brand, or?
Yeah, a little bit less than what it was in the old side, and that's one of the great novelties when people who don't know about Realogy and they're like, wait a second, Coldwell Banker and Century 21 are both here in the same building, and ERA and Better Homes and Gardens. Like, how's this all working? But yes, each brand has its own like corner or niche of it, but it's a much more open workspace. But there are certain areas that are branded that people know, like, oh, down here's the Coldwell Banker wing, and if I go across there, it'll be another brand. But not as cement walled as what the old building looked like.
Nice. So let's talk. We spent the first part of our conversation talking about kind of what got you to where you're at. David, you represent the brand, and a lot of us that are on this call watching know you as kind of the face and the voice of how what we see inside Coldwell Banker goes out to the public on the outside. Let's just talk big picture about marketing and branding in general.
Sure.
Break down for me, like forget the brand, forget Coldwell Banker for a second. What to you is the essence of marketing and branding?
So I look at marketing and branding as being two separate things. Marketing is what you're trying to get someone to do. I want you to buy my product, use my service, click on this link. Branding is really what you are about at your core. And two very different aspects to go about it. Totally, they're obviously connected. But to me, branding is something that I take significant pride in. Is what is our brand all about? When you say the words Coldwell Banker, what does that mean? What is the first thing you think of? And whether you like someone's answer or not, it's the right answer for them. So that's the tough part about branding versus marketing. There are tricks of the trade where you can get people to click on ads, take action that really has nothing to do with who you are as a brand. It's more getting them to do a specific action. But branding is really what are people going to understand, embrace, and either like or dislike about what you have to offer, regardless of what you say about it.
Okay. So go back to the beginning days, how has our branding and marketing evolved with your fingerprint on it along the way?
Well, one of the biggest shifts that we made was probably 10 years ago, when at the time it was every real estate brand was basically saying the same thing, and we were just adding a little like tweak to the end of it, and basically every agent was saying the same thing too. It was, now's a great time to buy, and why aren't you buying a home? Or now's a great time to sell, why aren't you selling a home? Come use Coldwell Banker, come visit our website. And we saw that this was, we called it the Sea of Sameness at the time, that everything was just felt the same, looked the same, we're talking the same way. So we decided to shift and say, why are we so focused on the rational side of home ownership? Because we're losing trust and believability. And I remember Mike Fisher and we found a study at the time that showed the trust levels of different industries. And this was 2008, 2009 timeframe, that real estate agents were trusted lower than politicians and lawyers. And I think it was because we were saying, regardless of what was going on in the world around us, we were all saying, it's a great time to buy. It's never not been a great time to buy a house. So whether that was true or not, we had lost that favor with the consumer. So we made a decision to shift the conversation and focus on the emotional aspects of home ownership, and did a ton of research on what is it that really makes people decide to buy or sell a home. And when it came down to it, while we all want to get the best price, we want the lowest rate mortgage, we want to make sure that we're not getting ripped off, the reason people are buying and selling homes is for lifestyle. They're getting married and they want a bigger place. They are having children and they want to move closer to a school. They got a new job and they want to be less of a commute. So we started focusing more on the emotional side of home ownership and how we can connect to consumers that way, and also through the industry, because our agents take pride in the fact that they are part of one of the largest single financial transactions that anyone will ever make, and that we're not selling cars or shoes. We're selling the American dream of home ownership. However, that's just you talking about a brand thing. However you want to position that, it's the truth. You're involved in one of the most significant decisions that someone is going to make in their lifetime. It's going to affect them not just for a year, but potentially 10 years or more. So using that, making that shift and focusing on the emotional side of things which we've been doing now for the better part of a decade, I think has really transitioned how effective our brand has been, and how consumers have reacted to it and what our brand truly stands for.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, you look at the evolution of all right. So I guess before I ask that question, we talk about our marketing, our branding. Now we got to tie in advertising, which is a different piece altogether. It's kind of, it crosses both of those fields. You know, I guess if you did that Venn diagram, advertising's here, and kind of what the consumer feels is in the middle, right? But so let's talk about some of your favorite advertising campaigns that we've done. If the four that I just kind of came up with, there's the Tom Selleck one, the iconic Tom Selleck, right? And what's his home mean? There was the dogs campaign, which I think was, you know, one of our favorites, and Owen and Sachi, you know, the story there, you know, of that great story of tying in the dogs, and then there's Hoops, right? Playing basketball in the driveway with your new friends, and then Homeward Bound was, you know, just unbelievable. I should have thought to drop it in here so we could have showed it to the people. But so just those four, or any others that you want to add in, just share some memories or some inside stories about some of those campaigns.
Those are, you probably picked my top four right there. The Tom Selleck Value of a Home one was interesting. So quick story. We hired a new agency, Silton & Partners, who we are still with today at the time. And this was their first pitch meeting to come to us and like, hey, here's the idea. And I remember setting them up in the conference room, and I was helping them with some technology stuff, and they were wanting to play this video, and they played it. And I was like, wait a second, is that Tom Selleck? And they're like, yeah, don't tell anybody. Yeah, we got Tom Selleck to do a rough read of the script for this video that we want to pitch to you. And I was like, did you guys know that Tom Selleck's dad used to work for Coldwell Banker? And they're like, yes, we did. Well, that's why we got him. And we did this research, and he's got such a great voice. And it just all came together. And so remembering that campaign, and then hearing him tell the story about going to the office with his dad and that connection, like, it really changed the game, I think, for us long term, that it was all of a sudden this emotional side of home ownership. Like, it meant something even deeper to those within the brand as much as it touched people who were just seeing the ad for the first time. The dogs ad was, that's just, if you can put a puppy and a baby in every ad, which I believe there is one basically in every ad that I've ever worked on, like, people love it. And people, we found, love their dogs potentially even more than they love their children. So creating this campaign about what does it mean to come home, and we talked about the value of home and what home means from an emotional side, and we just kept coming back to this fact that, like, dogs are the only things that whenever you leave, they're always excited to see you. Like, you want to think that your kids do that all the time, but they don't. But your dog doesn't care if you're gone like 5 days or 5 minutes. He's excited to see you when you come right in that door, and there's a special feeling with that. The dogs on set for that ad were just like, it was crazy. They're adorable. They are better fed than all of us. Like, I remember one dog, we got filet mignons was all he would eat. Like, I'm like, can we just take one of those, throw it on a grill for me? But no, that was a good one. Hoops was special because the idea came from, you know, some of my personal experience, as well as the head of our agency, of this idea that the basketball hoop is the only thing you attach to your home to make extra enjoyment. You can put a pool in the backyard, you can play baseball in the front yard, you can play catch, but really the hoop becomes a part of the home. And it's obviously one of the only sports where you can play it completely by yourself or with people around you. And we all know whose friends you would go to play hoops after school or in the yard or whatever. And so that was a really fun one to do with these little junior high kids running around all shooting hoops and doing dribble moves and stuff, and using that as a vehicle for the March Madness, where we were advertising at the time, and connecting it in a way that.
Let me interrupt you for a second. I bet during that shoot, all the downtime that you always hear about, I bet those kids were kind of doing their own, like, dude perfect, like long shots and.
The kids, the brand employees were doing that too. Yes, absolutely. It was like, how many Steph Curry crossovers can we do? How far away can we shoot from?
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun, and to be able to put a story together of how a hoop can really impact a kid, and that kids moving are often the forgotten part of the real estate transaction, because you're uprooting them, you're moving them somewhere else. Maybe it's a different school system, different neighborhood. So wanting to tell that story of how homeownership can impact kids another way. And then this past year with the Guiding You Home and Homeward Bound as the track to Simon and Garfunkel, that was the largest campaign like that we've done with as far as cast members, locations, sets, and it is, in my mind, the most iconic song about home, Homeward Bound, and it's just one of those tunes that it's just catchy and you can't not like it. And so our ad agency came up with the idea, well, instead of just running the song, what if we get people to sing along with the song as if they're on their way home, and being able to tell the story of all these different walks of life and where are people coming from? Is it a high school football team or a pilot or a truck driver or a motorcycle or just an ordinary person who's coming home from the hospital for the first time, soldiers coming home? Telling all those different stories in one is really powerful. And since this was the first ad we did with the rebrand, we wanted to make sure that it was really impactful and something special. I think we were able to achieve that.
You know, David, I'm big on relationships and the power of relationships. And I think it's pretty evident that the relationship that you and the brand has with Stilton and Company really shows that, you know, this is why companies stick together, because you start finishing each other's sentences. You start, you know, they're in a pitch idea for some soap company and they're thinking like, oh my God, I just got a great Coldwell Banker idea. Right. And you know, you guys probably work well off each other.
Oh, that's totally it. And there's a lot of turnover in the ad agency world where brands, they just get tired of you know, like, oh, let's find somebody else. Somebody else will get it. We'll get them cheaper and we'll get some different thinking. But the value of the partnership with Stilton and Partners is the fact that they understand our brand, they understand our network and our industry just about as good as we do. And having that other person, but they're looking at it also from outside of our industry as well. What is happening in the automobile industry? What's happening in the fast food service industry? That they can then say, hey, you know what? This may parlay into something for Coldwell Banker. It's great. And I love when I get every once in a while, Rob Siltonen, who's the chief creative officer and the principal at Stilton and Partners, he'll send me a text or about an idea that he has. And when it comes with a picture of something that he's drawing, and he's always coming to meetings with like a giant notebook. And I'm talking about the notebook is like yay big. It's not your normal, like I'm going to English 101 notebook. And he draws in it and he's like, I was thinking this. And he sends a picture of that. And I'm like, yes, I love it. Where are you? Where are you thinking of this? He's like, well, I took the morning off and I'm just sitting on the beach and I'm thinking about the brand and what can we do. I'm like, man, I wish I lived in Southern California so that I could do that from time to time. But yes, you're right. It's a great relationship and one that we truly value.
So before we get to the famous Carp's Corner speed round, Dave, put you on the hot seat. I want to ask you a couple other things. You know, you're big on story. Whether you're talking about being on stage at a Gen Blue or being at a local company event with our top agents, you've always been passionate about story. I think that's probably part of your love of the Star Wars and the superheroes stories, but also, you know, good old fashioned books. What is it about story that just fires you up?
I really think that it's the emotional impact that it has. And like, it makes you feel something that you ordinarily wouldn't. We just watched movie Safety on Disney Plus last night with the boys. It's a sports story about Ray McElrath and how he took care and adopted his younger brother and basically took care of him while being a college football player at Clemson. And I'm sitting there and I know how this story ends. And it's also a Disney movie, so they all end in the same way. But yet I felt emotionally moved, touched by this story. And like, very few things can do that. So whether it's a sports story, science fiction, whether it's a real story, Tom Rinaldi on a Sports Center segment, like I'm weeping basically every single time.
Sure.
But the ability of stories to take you out of your current world, put you in another one, whether it's a real or fictitious place, I think is one of the most powerful things that we have. And I've learned to appreciate the value of how you can use that to help persuade people, make an impact, change people's lives. So I think that's what's really attracted me to storytelling in general.
All right. So other brands that you admire, let's leave the real estate vertical. What other brands do you look at and say like, oh man, I liked what they did there? Or
well, it's easy to go with the big ones. Like I'm a big Nike and specifically Air Jordan fan. I love what they've done. Air Jordan with taking hey, we're continuing to make new shoes, but we're going to harken back or pay homage to where we've been, and where I think I read last year that the Air Jordan 1 and 2 were the top 2 selling shoes from Nike last year.
Wow.
And it's been over 20 years since they've come out. So
and the Jumpman branding, right? I mean, all the new programs, Florida wears Jumpman on all their stuff. And
exactly. Their ability to cross over from basketball into football, golf, and so much more. I think that's one. Another brand that I've really just gotten to know in the past year is Robinhood, which is a financial and investment company. They have their own application. And so I was like, oh, I've heard some ads. I've heard stuff about them. Let me check them out. And I got turned on to one of their podcasts. It's called Snacks Daily. And it was a basically 15-minute podcast that gives you financial, here's what's going on with this company and that. And the camaraderie that the two hosts have really turned me on to this brand. And so I started exploring and checking out some of the tools, and they do a fantastic job at taking a very complex thing like investing in the stock market, simplifying it, and taking away the fear factor of getting involved in it. So I think that's another brand that I've really gotten interested in more recently.
Dave, any favorite logos? Like go back old school, any favorite logos? You're like, man, that's just an iconic logo. I mean, you know, like I should have.
Jumpman logo is one. I mean, that's an easy one. Actually, the Jumpman Air Jordan logo, which in case you didn't know, he's not that picture. It comes from a picture that he took for the 1984 Olympics, and he wasn't even trying to dunk in that in the photo that they took for it, in the silhouette. He actually was just standing in place, and he jumped straight up, and that's why the ball is in his left hand instead of in his right. He's like, I rarely dunk with my left hand, but so quick story behind that. That's an iconic logo. You look at the fashion industry, like something like Chanel, like not that I've ever used Chanel, or maybe I've bought it, but I'm not sure. But I think like that is a simple, iconic, you know it when you see it type of logo. And I'm attracted to sports logos too, personally. So when you look at these sports teams, like the classicness of, I'm not even a Steelers fan, but that's like an iconic, so simple logo that you just put out there, and it's been around forever. And you know what it stands for immediately. But the New York Mets, you know, the interlocking N and Y. I mean, it doesn't get more classic.
You know, the Raiders. Yeah, there's some good sports logos. You know, the Raiders with the patch, and you know, you know, there is, and it is funny when programs, you know, and that's probably why, like in Alabama and a Penn State, their uniforms are so plain that they're awesome. You know, and you see every other program, the Oregons and the you know, they changed uniforms.
I have a new one. Even Army. I mean, my dad went to West Point, seeing Army play football, and the uniforms they had for the Army Navy game. I'm like, these are atrocious. Like, go back to the classic: gold helmets, black jerseys. Let's go. I'm with you there.
Yeah. All right, David. It's time. The Carp Corner Conversations Speed Round. Got a good crowd on here. I will say, if you guys have any questions at the end for David, drop them in the comments. All right, David. No prep on this. You didn't know any of these questions are coming. You're on the hot seat. Here you go. David Marine, your favorite vacation spot?
Maui.
With family or without?
With Tara.
With Tara. Okay.
With my wife. Yes.
Favorite band?
Can I say Sinatra?
Sure. Or musician. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you start listening to him early, or?
Probably college when I got turned on to him. I've got The World on a String is one of my favorite songs. It's one that I never get tired of hearing, and it always puts you in a good mood.
Awesome. David, movie that you've watched the most?
Star Wars in general, but I would say like you, Shawshank Redemption, I've probably seen parts of the most, but from start to finish, it's probably Star Wars: A New Hope. Okay.
And in the 9 movies, which one is that one?
4. Episode 4.
Before the Star Wars.
That is the first. A New Hope is the first Star Wars movie that came out in 1977.
Okay, I know that was the first one, but in the bookshelf, it would be the 4th.
It would be number 4. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh, cookies and cream.
Nice. Okay.
Yes. And if you can get the Oreo brand from Friendly's, like that's where it's actually get like whole Oreos in that one.
Nice. Friendlies. I miss Friendlies.
Oh yeah. Do people know Friendly's? Like, is that only a Northeast thing or?
Yeah, I don't know. The fabulous Fribble and
That's right, Fribble.
Yes. David, how about your favorite piece of advice from your mom or your dad that you still heed?
Oh, there's one that I use all the time with my team as well. My mom told me in college that she says, David, the phone works both ways. And it was we don't always have to call you. You can call us. And so I've used that as well. Like, hey, what am I waiting for this person to call me and give me this update or send me this note? Let me be proactive and reach out to them.
And what a great lesson, especially for a lot of people on this call. I've had this conversation today with some agents I was coaching with, because we sort of feel like, well, I don't want to always be calling my clients. They could call me if they want. It's like, well, I mean, you're the one that's looking for opportunities in the future.
Right.
And, that's why Gen Blue, I think, is a fun event because we get together with people you haven't seen in a while. And a lot of times in our real lives, the only time you see people is when someone's married or married, right? A wedding or a funeral.
That's right.
And so that pick up the phone. Love that. David, is Team Marine pet owners?
We have 4 animals, but they're all human.
Okay.
We are not a pet owner. Yeah.
Okay. No pets. Did you grow up with pets? Did you have a dog when you were little?
I did not. My parents were not pet people. So that is the hidden secret of the guy who makes the dog ads doesn't have a dog.
Nice. David, what's your ideal weekend?
Oof, sleeping in till like 9:30, omelet for breakfast with bacon and coffee, and then there's maybe a pool run in the summer, and you come back home and you're able to watch some baseball, basketball, basketball, baseball in the afternoon to kind of like ease into the evening.
Nice. The last show or series that you binge watched?
We just finished Manhunt Deadly Games, really good, about the Olympic bombing. And I did not know this. I mean, lived through that era, but actually it was a serial bomber who bombed a number of other places targeting basically frontline workers. So really Richard Jewell's story intertwined in there. It was really good. And there's a previous series ahead of that, Manhunt Unabomber, about Ted Kaczynski, also really good.
Yep,
both on Netflix, I think.
Heard that, yeah. Now, I mentioned earlier in a comment on your soccer coaching. Have you seen Ted Lasso?
Yes, I haven't watched the whole season, but I've seen an episode or two. But yes,
yeah.
Jason Sudeikis is hilarious.
You got to get that one down. I've watched it twice. Dave, what's something on your bucket list?
What is something? Well, I would like to go to all 50 states. I've been to 47. So I would say Montana, experiencing big sky country would be up there.
Nice. Well, my mom's got a place out there if you need a reason.
Oh, really?
I was born in Billings. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I did not know that. Wow.
Yes. So that's a good one. What are the other two besides Montana?
Alaska and South Dakota.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I've been to North Dakota, but randomly not South Dakota.
I've got Alaska, and the other 3, surprisingly, I could get in one day if I wanted. It's Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah.
I could literally go through all 3 in one day. So I'm waiting for my buddy, John Finch, to invite me up there to speak. All right, one more. What does success mean to you, David?
That is a good one. Also very meta question. So success, one of the things that when you become a parent and you hear people talk about all the time is like, I just want my kids to be happy is a line that we throw out there. Like, I just want my kids to be happy. And I remember very early on, and it might even be my parents who said this, they're like, happiness is a low base. Like, you don't want your kids to be happy. You want them to be profitable as a whole, not profitable as in money, but what are they doing that is going to give something back to the community in which they live, to the people that are around them, to the place where they are. And I think that is what success is when that you have an impact on other people's lives. That's what true success is in changing things for the better. So hopefully that's something that I can do, whether it's at work, at home, in my church, and parlay that to my children as well.
David, do you feel comfortable talking about giving a shout out to your 4 boys?
Oh, yes. Logan's 16. Wyatt is 13. So I got 2 teenagers. Owen is 10, and Cole is 7. Big thing in our house is Cole and Owen have just discovered the NFL, and they are now like rabid football fans. I said, go ahead, pick a team. You don't have to be a Giants fan like Daddy, but he will love you more if you do. My 10-year-old picked the Chiefs.
Of course.
Smart. Got Mahomes for like the next decade. Like, that's a wise choice. My 7-year-old randomly picks the Bears.
Okay.
Like, they're not even good. They don't have like a great, like, oh, look at those awesome jerseys like the Seahawks have or something like that. But he picked the Bears. So I was really praying yesterday. Like, please let the Bears make the playoffs just so that he can experience that as well. And they ended up making it because Arizona lost.
Yeah, backdoored in. So, listen, this was a blast, David. I just saw Joe King, our Ohio president, jumps on.
Oh, yeah.
I saw David Krieger from Philly was on earlier. We've had a ton of people that have been either Gen Blue at some point in time or are Gen Blue now on with it. As we finish up, Dave, and head into 2021, what is kind of something on the horizon that you can kind of tease us to with the Gen Blue?
Oh, Gen Blue. So Gen.
I just meant the anything, not necessarily about Gen Blue.
Oh, not the event specifically, but yes. So I mean, I think you're going to hear this. We talked about it at one of our past brand sessions, but we are looking forward to being back on March Madness this year and rolling out the Homeward Bound and Guiding You Home campaign. Again, just saw news from ESPN today that they're going to do a bubble in Indianapolis for March Madness, so it's looking really good that they're going to be able to do that. So we have that coming out. We have a ton of new offerings that are coming out through our BrandServe platform, updates to the Prospect Square, which is the platform that we have with Coldwell Banker for connecting socially and using data. So lots going on, lots of great new messaging and branding design that you're going to see coming out around the campaign as well. So excited about that. And the Global Luxury Program, this is the first full year we're rolling that out under the Project North Star. So a ton of new stuff. Videos are coming out and showcasing so that we can stay on top of the luxury market. Because I don't know if you know this, but Coldwell Banker sells more $1 million homes than anyone else. So we want to keep it that way.
Love it. David, you're great at what you do. You're an even better person. I'm glad to call you a friend.
I appreciate that.
My favorite Carp's Corner conversation guest so far this year. So I appreciate that. And we
I appreciate that, Sean. I'm going to leave you with this. I remember, I think maybe it was a global summit. I went to one of your sessions and you did a presentation on following the yellow brick road with the Wizard of Oz as kind of the format. I remember that. I think that was one of the first times we interacted in person, and proud to call you a friend since then as well.
That was Jacksonville, Florida. That was a blast. Yeah. Summit. So, hey, listen, guys, do me a favor. Do 3 things this year: build relationships, solve problems, and have fun. We'll see you next time on Carp's Corner Conversations.
Thanks, Sean.